The skies of Lumerous 3 were burning. Ash rained down like black snow. The beautiful golden towers of the capital cracked and collapsed under the weight of fire and fear. Dr. Virel, a Zean scientist, crouched low inside the ruins of the communication station, her hands trembling as she tried to repair the last working transmitter. All around her, screams echoed through the streets. The peaceful people of her world had never known war till now. Zorik Syndicate had come. Without warning, pirates, slavers, mercenaries, whatever you called them, they were ruthless, brutal, and hungry for power. They saw Lumerous 3 as soft and full of resources, and the council had ignored every request for help. Too far, too small, not strategic. And so, the beautiful world fell in just days. Now, Virel was alone. Everyone she had worked with was dead or captured. She had no weapons, no hope, but she had something else. A chance, a rumor. A forbidden channel deep in the galactic network, one that the council had locked long ago. It was said to lead to a dead planet called Earth. No one knew where it was. Most believed it was a myth, others said the humans had destroyed themselves centuries ago. But some whispered that they still watched from the shadows, waiting for someone to call. Virel had no choice. Her claws tapped quickly over the cracked console, activating the old beacon line. Didn't even know if it would reach. She only knew that it was dangerous. The council had warned, "Do not awaken Earth." She pressed send. The message was short. No name, no planet. Just a voice full of fear. "Please help us. They are killing us. Is anyone out there?" The signal traveled through space like a dying scream. It passed dead satellites, ruined space stations, and abandoned beacons. It was ignored by hundreds of systems, lost in the static of bigger wars and louder cries. But it didn't stop. It kept going, past the edge of council territory, through a sector marked as void space, a place where even pirates wouldn't go. There, deep in the dark, a single satellite turned its eye toward the signal. Its surface was old and cold, but it still worked. It listened. It recorded. And then, without blinking, it passed the signal into a hidden channel, the kind no one was supposed to know about. In a forgotten orbit around a silent black planet, something woke up. Didn't flash lights or raise alarms, simply activated. A fleet buried in shadows began to move. No flags, no colors, just black steel. Silent systems lit up. Coordinates appeared. Lumerous 3, unknown world, confirmed distress. Level red, civilian threat. Authorization, Deathworld protocol. The silent fleet didn't ask who sent the signal. It didn't ask why. It only responded. Back on Lumerous 3, Virel sat alone in the transmitter room, tears drying on her cheeks. The night was too quiet now. The screams had faded, or that everyone was dead or the Zorik had taken them all. Her signal had vanished into the void. There had been no response. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe Earth was really gone. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." But then, everything changed. In the black sky, clouds began to swirl. The fires dimmed. The air pulsed with a strange vibration. And then she saw them, shapes moving without sound. Long, dark ships with no visible engines. They didn't shine. They didn't roar. They just drifted downward like shadows falling from heaven. The ground trembled beneath her feet. The Zorak looked up, confused. No alarms had gone off. No warnings. But they began to panic, because these were not council ships. These were not pirates or local militias. These were black, sharp, cold machines that made no sound but crushed the air around them. Deathworlders. The ones from the stories, and then they struck. There was no negotiation, no messages, no demands, just movement. Fast, precise, ruthless. The Deathworlders did not walk, they appeared. 1 second, there was nothing. The next, the streets were filled with armored figures. Their faces hidden behind masks, their weapons glowing with cold blue light. They didn't speak. They didn't scream. They didn't even look angry. They moved like machines, but every step they took was full of purpose. They found the Zorak commanders first, took them down without hesitation. Then they moved to the bunkers, slicing through metal doors like paper. The Syndicate soldiers tried to run. Some begged for mercy. The Deathworlders gave none. They were not here for politics. They were not here to negotiate freedom. They were here because someone had cried out and Earth had heard. From her hiding spot, Birel watched in shock as the world she knew was torn apart. But this time, it wasn't by monsters. It was by something far worse, humans who didn't care about fear. Every Deathworlder she saw moved with silent rage, as if they carried the weight of every world that had ever been ignored. Their technology didn't just destroy, it erased. Zorak ships lost power. Before even taking off, surrendering didn't matter. The Deathworlders didn't come to negotiate. They came to end it. In less than 2 hours, the entire Zorak force was gone. Not captured, not arrested, just gone. Virel crawled out of the ruins, her legs shaking. The Deathworlders were already leaving. No medals, no banners. They didn't even look at her. They had done what they came for. That was all. But then, one of them turned. Just for a second, a tall figure, armored in dark metal. Their visor reflected the burning skyline. No expression, no voice. But they raised one hand, 2 fingers placed against their chest. Then they turned and vanished into the shadows, like ghosts. The next morning, when the first survivors emerged from the wreckage, the world was quiet again. But something had changed. The Zorak were gone. The cities were still standing. And all over the ruins, people found small metal tokens left. Behind, simple coins with a broken circle burned into the surface. No words, no names, just the mark of the ones who answered. The council sent investigators, but they arrived too late. No trace of Earth's fleet remained. It's just silence, cold, clean. Final, but now the story was out. One signal, one message. And the Deathworlders had moved. Across the stars, others heard what had happened. Some whispered in fear, others in hope. And far beyond the edge of known space, Earth listened again. No one truly knew where Earth was. Not anymore. Hundreds of years had passed since their last known contact. The maps labeled them as extinct, lost, or worse, unknown origin. The Galactic Council claimed Earth was dead, buried. Under its own wars, the archives were sealed. The warnings were forgotten. But deep in the systems that dared not speak of Deathworlders, the rumors still lived. Stories told in prison bunkers and Bakali bars passed from smuggler to mercenary. Stories of humans who walked through fire, fleets that didn't show up on sensors, of soldiers that fought like machines but broke like wolves. Now, the truth was always the same. Earth did not come for peace. Earth came when others stopped caring. And when they came from the edge of silence. Now, Lumeris 3 had seen it with their own eyes. Black ships that made no sound. Soldiers who didn't wait. Who didn't ask. Who only acted. The galaxy felt a ripple, that day one signal answered by a force no one controlled. But that wasn't the end. That was only the opening door. At the edge of known space, near a frozen belt of shattered moons, the Deathworlder fleet regrouped. No names, no tags, just numbers. Each ship carried a different scar, a different memory, a different mission. These weren't fresh recruits. These were ghosts. Soldiers who had seen what happened when the galaxy failed to act. survivors of wars the Council denied. Each one trained not for battle but for correction. Their commander, Captain Thorne, stood alone in the war chamber of the flagship Eclipse. He wore no colors, no medals, no symbols of rank, just armor that looked more like stone than metal, chipped with silent history. His voice was low, steady. One signal reached us. Others will follow. We do not choose wars. We answer them. Around him, screens blinked with data worlds and chaos broadcasts. Of suffering, signals ignored. The Deathworlders didn't debate. They sorted, they moved, and always they stayed one step ahead of those who wanted them gone. The Galactic Council panicked. They called emergency meetings. Leaders yelled over each other. How did Earth respond? Where did they get the signal? Closed the lines centuries ago, they were supposed to be extinct. But deep inside, they already knew. Earth had never gone extinct. They had gone silent, watching, waiting, choosing, and now someone had reached them, not a council, not an empire, but a desperate civilian. And Earth had responded with the only thing they knew: action. The Council sent ships to Luminous 3, hoping to find evidence. But by the time they arrived, the Deathworlders were gone. What they found instead were ruins, clean, cold, and quiet. No Zorak bodies, no traces of Earth tech, only strange marks etched into the stone. Circles, lines, ancient runes, with no translation. But survivors told the same story. They came at night. They didn't speak. They didn't stop. They didn't stay. The Council tried to spin the story as a rogue faction, an old Earth cult. But they couldn't stop the truth from spreading. In the underground cities of the Varkari Belt, graffiti started to appear. Black paint on metal walls. A broken circle. The mark of Earth. On the mining planet Elros 9. Children played a new game, pretending to be Deathworlders, saving their towns from Council cowards. On trade stations near the Outer Rim, smugglers wore black bands in silence, honoring the ghosts that had done what no fleet would. But not everyone admired them. In the halls of power, Earth was now a threat. An uncontrollable fire, Council fleets were sent to monitor deep space. Intelligence officers were ordered to find Earth's origin point. Billions of credits were spent chasing shadows. Still no trace, no signal, no sound. Earth didn't respond again. They simply waited, always waited. Meanwhile, another signal reached them. From a slave moon orbiting the dead star of Relka, a transmission buried in static. They took our children. We are dying. Earth received it, analyzed it, verified it. The moon was real. The captors were real. The pain was real. Without a word, the fleet moved. This time, they brought 3 ships. That was all they needed. The slavers were from the Crawl Syndicate, infamous for their cruelty and hidden bases. They believed no one would reach them this far out. They had security grids, energy shields, and mines hidden in the asteroids. But Deathworlders didn't go around defenses. They walked through them. The first strike came without warning. A power grid failed. The oxygen system shut down. Then the black ships appeared, landing without sound. The crawl guards opened fire. The bullets hit nothing. The Deathworlders moved like smoke appearing behind walls, through shadows from underneath floors. In less than 20 minutes, the slavers were gone. The children were found, not harmed, but broken. Earth didn't just rescue them. They gave them armor, shelter names. They gave them purpose when the fleet left. They left behind a message carved into the central command console. It read, "You sell pain. We correct it." No signature. No flag, just that. The message reached every corner of the galaxy. Not through broadcasts, but through whispers. The Deathworlders had returned. Not because they wanted war, but because the galaxy had earned it. Back in his war chamber, Captain Thorne looked at the rising reports. Hundreds of cries. Thousands of systems begging for help. And still, Earth remained unseen. Not because they were hiding, but because they moved only when it mattered. "We are not gods," he said quietly to his second in command. We are what's left when everyone else fails. His officer, a woman with scars that reached into her cybernetic eye, nodded. Then it's time to move again. Another world is falling. He turned to the star map. Then we fall with them. Far beyond, hidden in the dark corners of broken space, other voices whispered, Earth is awake. The Deathworlders walk again. The galaxy will never be the same. They were right. In the deep corners of the galaxy, the warlords began to take notice. Systems that had once lived in fear of their power were now strangely silent. Ships went missing. Slave routes were broken. Colonies they once controlled now sent messages of liberation. The name behind the silence. Earth, the humans, the Deathworlders. To the warlords, it didn't make sense. Earth was supposed to be gone, buried under its own madness. A cursed planet where gravity crushed bones and predators stalked the forests with hunger in their eyes. No species survived that kind of world. No society lasted through that kind of chaos. And yet, here they were moving through space like a virus, hunting down evil with silent ships and emotionless soldiers. Warlord Khazar of the Red Veil Syndicate had ruled 10 sectors for over 30 years. He'd crushed rebellions, bribed council members, and turned moons into slave factories. He was feared across the stars. Rot now, one by one, his outposts were going dark. Not destroyed, vanished. No debris, no signals, no remains. Only a black token with a broken circle where his banners used to fly. Khazar was ready for war. He had armies, fleets, elite killers, and stolen tech. But he didn't realize Earth was not coming to fight a war. Earth was the war. The Deathworlders didn't move in waves. Came like a knife clean, sharp and fast. Where Khazar expected battleships, Earth sent infiltration squads. Where he prepared turrets, Earth hacked the grid. Where he hid in asteroid fields, Earth arrived from angles no one calculated. His bases fell in hours, sometimes minutes. Soldiers disappeared from locked rooms. Defense AI turned against their masters. Earth's methods weren't flashy, but they were surgical, brutal, perfect, and most terrifying of all, they didn't celebrate. When the death squads left a system, there were no banners or broadcasts. Just silence, broken only by the echo of a single message left behind. You were warned. Panic spread among the other warlords. They held emergency meetings, swearing oaths and trading dark secrets. They thought they could buy Earth off, bribe them with tech, slaves, or information. But Earth never responded. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They simply appeared, and when they did, there was no more time to beg. On the world of Drezak, Warlord Khazar gathered his strongest defenses. He turned the skies into fire with orbital guns, shield nets, and fleets on standby. Let them come, he said, wearing armor carved from the bones of extinct species. I'll show these Deathworlders how war is done. When Earth came, they didn't strike the sky. It came through the ground. An old mine shaft beneath the city had been dormant for years. No guards, no sensors. Earth used it. In the middle of the night, without warning, Khazar's palace exploded from the inside. His elite guards never fired a single shot. The warlord himself was found frozen in his escape pod, drifting in space with a black symbol carved into the glass half circle, half flame. Earth didn't destroy Drezak. They handed it back to the people. It's left behind tools, generators, and encrypted guides. Just like Lumerous Tree, just like the others. And once again, they vanished without a trace. Galactic Council could no longer pretend Earth didn't exist, but they still tried to paint them as extremists. Unauthorized military actions, they said. Unregulated violence. The public didn't care. People saw what Earth had done who Earth had helped. The ones who were saved weren't rich, weren't powerful. They were the forgotten, the broken, the weak. The Council had ignored them. Earth had not. Suddenly, support for the Council began to collapse. On a dozen worlds, citizens started wearing black rings around their arms. The broken circle became a symbol of protection. And the Deathworlders became something more than feared. They became trusted, but not everyone believed it. High Chancellor Rivas, one of the most powerful voices in the council, called for direct confrontation. "They are a rogue element," she said. "We must find Earth and crush their fleets before they rewrite galactic law." But her own security chief knew better. In private, he whispered, "You don't crush ghosts. You just pray they don't visit you next." Still, Rivas approved a fleet, massive 100 warships, armed with AI-guided missiles and shielded by the best technology in the galaxy. She sent them to the last known location of the Deathworlders, the Ghost Belt, an abandoned sector near Black Star ruins. The fleet arrived. They waited, they scanned, nothing. Then, one by one, the ships began to shut down. Power loss, weapon failure, comes blackout. The Admiral tried to call for help, but there was no signal. On the main screen, a simple message appeared. "This is not war. This is balance." The fleet never returned. Back in the hidden command, center deep beneath the Earth's surface on ancient vault known only as Blackroot Commander, Thorn stood with his officers. He watched footage of the warlords falling, the council spinning, the people rising. His face remained calm, unreadable. "We are not here for revenge," he said. "We are here for correction." His voice was cold but honest. "Every child stolen, every planet sold, every signal ignored. We remember them all. We don't fight to conquer. We fight because no one else will." And his team nodded, not out of fear, but because they knew this was the mission Earth had been built for. Not politics, not empire. Justice, and across the stars, the galaxy held its breath. Some still planned resistance, as others prepared for peace. But no one could deny it now. The Deathworlders were not coming. They were already here. Long after the Deathworlders vanished into space, the world of Drezek stood in silence, like a battlefield without blood. There were no bodies left, no wreckage from war, no ruins from orbital fire. Yet the fear was fresh in the bones of everyone who had once served the warlords. They whispered about how fast it happened, how the walls melted open and shadows moved without sound. But for those who had lived in chains, miners, farmers, mothers, children, this silence was not fear, it was peace. For the first time in years, no one stood guard outside their homes. No patrols stormed the alleys. No drones scanned their doors. The Deathworlders hadn't come to control them, hadn't taken the throne, demanded taxes, or placed a flag in the sky. They'd come and gone like a storm that clears the air. But they didn't leave empty-handed. And they didn't leave the same in the central square, where once Warlord Khazar had built a golden statue of himself. Now stood something else. Not a monument. A structure. Flat, black, and humming with quiet power. It was shaped like a broken ring split down the middle and glowing faintly. No writing, no door, no interface. And yet it worked. It began scanning the city the moment it was left behind, analyzing resources, health data, environmental decay. Within a week, it activated. First, it purified the water. Then it connected power to medical shelters. Then it distributed encrypted blueprints to the central terminals. Machines started repairing themselves. Drones, once used for patrols, now carried food and filtered air. Children gathered around the ring each morning, watching it hum softly like it was listening. It wasn't just technology. It was a gift. It's not from conquerors, but from those who knew what it meant to rebuild from ashes. In the far west of Drezek, a group of former slaves discovered something deeper. In the mines once worked to death, they found sealed crates the Deathworlders had left behind. Inside were tools, not weapons, but fabrication kits, portable forges, modular shelters, medical pods. 8. Each crate had the symbol of Earth burned into. The side a broken circle with no words, just a silent message. Use it well. The people didn't know what to think. Earth had come like fire, like vengeance, but this was something else. Something worse than revenge. It was responsibility, the kind no empire ever gave them. It wasn't just liberation, it was a second chance. The kind that came with no strings attached, no government to serve. Just the tools to live, but not everything. They left behind could be touched, in the dreams of survivors. Strange visions began to appear, flashes of war-torn cities on alien worlds, screams across planets no one had ever heard of. A boy named Selric, who had never left Drezek, woke up speaking a language he didn't know. He described a forest made of metal, beasts with fire for blood, and humans who wept in silence before launching their last missiles. A woman named Marala, once a prisoner for 15 years, began sketching symbols and battle formations with perfect accuracy. She didn't know how. Others began to remember feelings that weren't theirs. Pain, loss, duty. It was as if the Deathworlders had left behind more than tools. Had left behind memories, echoes, and the survivors were beginning to carry them. The Council, growing desperate, sent an investigation unit to Drezek. Armed with drones and peace officers, they arrived with questions. Where are the Deathworlders? What did they leave? Who controls the city now? The people didn't answer. Not out of fear, but because they didn't need the Council anymore. They had learned to speak in silence. It's just like Earth. When one officer tried to seize the black ring in the city center, the structure emitted a low pulse, and the Council ship's systems fried instantly. The message was clear. This does not belong to you. The officers left. The Council filed its report. But none of them could deny the truth. Earth was changing everything, and not with armies. With presence, quiet, absolute, across the galaxy. Other worlds began to show signs of Earth's mark. On Zerathate, a jungle planet ruled by a drug lord named Voker, a plague had spread for decades. The Council refused to intervene. But now the plague was gone. In its place, a field of silver machines buried underground, cleaning the air, healing the water. No one saw the Deathworlders arrive, but they had. On Yexaprime, a mining colony known for the worst working conditions in the Quadrant workers, found a hidden Volterth tech armor and neural links designed to enhance strength and protect the body from radiation. Each one adjusted itself to the wearer's body. Not for war, it's for survival. Earth didn't just strike the wicked, they protected the broken. And that made them impossible to predict. Back in the hidden Earth, based inside a black hole's orbit, Commander Thorne stood watching new reports stream in. His officers asked him the same thing every cycle. How long can we keep doing this? And he always gave the same answer, as long as they keep calling. He didn't smile, he didn't boast. He just stared into the void, waiting. We saw him. This wasn't war. This was redemption. It's not just for others. It's for Earth. For everything they had done to themselves centuries ago. Humanity had been chaos once. Now they had become the sword in the dark, the storm no one saw coming. It's the memory the galaxy couldn't bury. And so the message of Earth began to spread. Not in broadcasts, it's not in declarations, but in the quiet afterpain. In the tools that healed, in the voices that no longer cried. Earth's name was not on their lips, but in their hearts they knew. Someone had heard them. Someone had cared. Someone had done what no one else would. That was what the Deathworlders left behind. And it was only the beginning. The signs were everywhere, but the galaxy refused to see them. One by one, the warlords vanished, their flags torn down, their symbols erased by something faster than fleets and deadlier than any known weapon. Forgotten worlds were healing. Civilian colonies long abandoned were now powered, defended, and free. The ones who had suffered the longest were the first to understand. Earth was real, and it was moving. But the powerful? The governments? The empires? The proud? They were blind. The Galactic Council kept debating. Reports came in vanishing fleets, hacked systems, entire fortresses emptied in minutes. But each report was met with the same answer. We have no proof it's Earth. Maybe it's rebels. Maybe it's rogue AI. They didn't want to believe in the Deathworlders. Belief would mean action. It would mean accepting that someone outside their control had risen, and worse, that the forgotten were choosing them. But Earth didn't need recognition. It didn't need approval. It only needed one thing: a cry for help. And cries were now flooding in. A mining colony on Zenthranine reported black figures rescuing a ship full of orphaned children before a pirate ambush. A trade station in the Abyss Zone found its corrupt governor locked in his own prison, with the words we remember burned into the wall. On Varnak Prime, where a slave market had stood for 80 years, the buildings were turned to ash overnight. No survivors among the slavers. Not one. The slaves. Freed, fed, given strange tools and maps to safe places no one had heard of before. The Deathworlders didn't wait for broadcasts. They answered the unspoken. They moved through the dark, acting on pain like a signal pure and raw. The Council still refused to respond, but other powers were watching. The Jalari Union, once neutral, now sent scouts to the edge of the dead sectors, hoping to catch a glimpse of Earth's fleets. They found nothing but wreckage. Clean, controlled, precise. Every battle fought by Earth left no noise. No messages. Only silence that screamed louder than any war horn. On the political homeworld of Selvantor, Chancellor Rivas ordered the creation of a special task force, Project Silence. Their mission: find Earth, track the Deathworlders, and destroy them. If necessary, billions of credits were spent. Spy ships were launched, surveillance drones flooded the galaxy. Still, they found nothing. One drone, floating near a dead moon, received a single transmission. 3 words: "You're too late." Then the signal went dark, and the drone imploded without warning. Back on Selvantor, panic spread, not because of the loss, but because Earth had spoken. For the first time, they had said something. And what they said was final. Meanwhile, the public was changing. On crowded spaceports, people whispered about the broken circle symbol. Merchants painted it on their doors, hoping it meant protection. Rebel groups once hunted by the Council now used it as a sign of hope. Some even began forming local defense squads, small groups trained not to rebel, but to resist evil where they saw it. They called themselves Echoes. They didn't claim to be Earth. They didn't pretend to be Deathworlders. But they followed the message: no more silence. In quiet corners of the galaxy, Earth had started something bigger than war. They had started belief, not in gods, not in heroes, but in justice with teeth. And while the galaxy argued, Earth moved. Again, a deep space prison station known as Nell 41 was considered impenetrable. Built inside an asteroid and guarded by 30 drones and 2 cruisers, it held some of the worst criminals, alive warlords, syndicate leaders, even traitor admirals. But inside Nell 41, prisoners still ruled. Guards were paid off. The innocent were tortured for fun. The system was broken. Council looked away. And then, one night, everything changed. The lights flickered. The power dropped. One by one, the guards vanished. Security feeds shut down. Within 1 hour, Nell 41 went silent. Days later, a merchant ship passing through reported seeing a strange formation of lights around the asteroid, tiny drones circling like fireflies. When investigators arrived, the prison was empty. Every innocent inmate was gone. The guilty? Still. They're but unconscious. Their bodies tagged and labeled with digital files of their crimes. The walls of the prison had one message etched into: the steel, your sentence has begun. There was no doubt anymore. Earth had made its move clear. Inside the Deathworlder fleet, hidden in black space, Commander Thorne studied the galactic map. Dozens of signals lit up each. One a call for help, a sign of injustice. He didn't look excited. He didn't look tired. He looked ready. No, they still don't understand, his second-in-command whispered. Thorne nodded. They won't. Not until we're already there. He didn't want fame. He didn't want praise. Earth had buried its pride long ago. All they wanted now was to make sure no cry for help went unanswered again. Earth had once cried for help too. And no one came. That mistake would not be repeated. But Earth wasn't limitless. Their fleets moved in silence. But they couldn't be everywhere, and their enemies were evolving. The Council had started building new AI sentinels. The remaining warlords were forming secret alliances, preparing hidden traps. Some even began copying Earth's tactics: dark armor, stealth ships, propaganda using the Deathworlder name. They thought they could fake the fear, but it didn't work. Because the galaxy was learning something important. You can copy a weapon, but not its purpose. The Deathworlders didn't fight for power. They fought because someone had to, and so the galaxy reached a breaking point. The Council prepared a formal order. If Earth was seen in any star system, they were to be declared a Class Black threat enemy of peace, target on sight. But before they could send it out, the Council received a message. Not intercepted, not decoded, sent directly to their high command. A voice. Calm, male, human. It said, "You ignored them. We won't. Continue your silence and we will speak louder." Then it cut off. No trace, no origin, no signal bounce. Just gone. And in that moment, the galaxy realized too late what had happened. Earth hadn't come back. They had never left. Across the stars, everyone was speaking. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings, broadcasting fear behind carefully chosen words. The remaining warlords whispered in private channels, trading weapons and locations like scared animals hiding. From a storm, news channels speculated, experts guessed, leaders promised peace, and military fleets began to tighten their borders. Everyone had something to say. Everyone, except Earth. The Deathworlders didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They didn't demand. And that silence. It was louder than any fleet, any war cry, any weapon the galaxy had ever known. The moment Earth didn't answer, fear grew deeper. The powerful kept asking, what are they planning now? The truth was simple. Earth didn't plan to conquer. They didn't need to. Their silence was control. Absence made empires collapse. The thought of them appearing again made even the bravest admirals hesitate before firing a shot. That's what made the Deathworlders different. They didn't show up to win. They showed up to end things. On the planet Varnes 12, a border colony. Owned by the wealthy Raxari Syndicate, a new defense wall had just been completed. 12 kilometers tall, reinforced steel. Plasma turrets every 2 meters. Yi-guided drones monitored the skies every second. It was called the Unbreakable. Ring. Its creator claimed not even a fleet could break it. Then one night, with no warning, the sky flickered. Just for a second. And when the light returned, every turret was offline. The drones were frozen midair. The power grid was still active but empty. A strange energy had replaced their core systems. And at the center of the wall, where the command tower once stood, there was now only a small black sphere, floating, turning slowly. It pulsed once, just once, then dropped to the ground like a rock. The wall still stood, but its meaning was gone. The Deathworlders hadn't attacked it. They had simply removed its purpose. That was how Earth worked now. They didn't waste effort. They didn't break what didn't matter. They only erased what had no right to exist. Slavery, corruption, abuse, entire networks of dark trade had vanished across multiple sectors. Illegal arms markets found their weapons disarmed from the inside. Hidden research labs attempting to clone hybrid species were discovered with all test subjects freed and every computer wiped. Sometimes the Deathworlders left no message. Sometimes they left just a phrase burned into a wall or written on a datapad. You knew better. And sometimes they left nothing at all, just a feeling in the air. That someone had been there, watching, judging. The Council tried to respond. They released a galactic bulletin, calling Earth a rogue force of violence and an ancient threat returned from chaos. Even the media didn't buy it. Civilians remembered who had helped them when the Council ignored their cries. They remembered the black ships that dropped medicine. The soldiers who asked no questions, the engineers who fixed their systems in the night and vanished by morning. That wasn't chaos. That wasn't rogue. That was order. It's unshakable, silent, and real. The louder the Council shouted, the more people ignored them. In fact, more worlds had started to reach out in secret-coded signals sent toward the stars, not asking for soldiers, just for someone who listened. And Earth was listening always. Back in the deep shadows of space, hidden inside a gravity-warped nebula, the Deathworlder flagship Eclipse floated like a ghost. Its black armor absorbed light. Its systems made no sound. Commander Thorne stood, alone in the dark, staring at the dozens of blinking requests on the holomap. Each one a cry for help. Some smaller sick colony, a missing transport, a blocked supply line. Others, far worse, entire planets under control of tyrants, moons, used for illegal war testing. His officers asked what to do first. Thorne simply pointed, and the ones no one else will answer. That was the rule. That was Earth's new code. Let the Council play politics. Let the warlords chase power. Earth would move where morality had died. But something had changed. For the first time, the Council wasn't just afraid. They were angry. Their power was slipping. Their words no longer worked. Their fleets no longer ruled. And worst of all, they didn't know how to stop Earth. They didn't even know where Earth was, so they tried something desperate. They activated an ancient weapon called the Pulse Beacon. It was a galactical energy wave that could scan every known system at once, bypassing cloaks, shields, even black hole interference. No one had used it in over 500 years. It was unstable, legal, dangerous. But the Council launched it anyway. Hoping to find the Deathworlders' base, they did not. Instead, the beacon returned one signal. A location. But what the Council saw there wasn't an empire. It wasn't a fortress. It was a dead world. At least that's what they thought. The planet was silent. Gray. No cities. No power readings. Just dust and echoes. The Council laughed. This is their base? A ruined world? They sent a probe down. Then a second. Then a third. None returned. Finally, a ship landed. No resistance. No welcome. Just silence. But when? The soldiers walked the surface. They started seeing strange things, ruins that shifted when not watched. Shadows that followed without light. The feeling of being judged with every step. One officer went mad. Another fell to his knees and wept. A final message was transmitted before the feed went black. They are not gone. They are watching us from inside. The Council shut down the mission. Quietly, secretly. But it was too late. Whispers began to spread. Earth had turned itself into a weapon, not just in space, but in mind. The planet didn't need to be alive. It remembered. It protected itself. Earth had become something beyond strategia, myth made real again. The Deathworlders didn't need ships in every sky. Their silence did more damage than any fleet. Because now, every empire had to wonder, are they behind me right now? Far away? Back on the ship Eclipse, Thorne turned off the signal feed. He watched the stars in silence. Round him no one spoke. They didn't need to. They knew. Next signal would come. Another cry, another scream, another injustice ignored. And Earth would answer it like always, not with words, but with the cold, merciless silence of action. It started as a weak signal, buried under static, drifting through space like a forgotten whisper. Most relay stations missed it. Others dismissed it as old junk from some lost colony. But one listening post on the edge of neutral space caught it. The signal was broken, desperate, but clear enough to decode. It wasn't just a distress call, it was a scream. A planet called Halvina, deep in the dark spiral where no patrols ever went, was under attack. Not by pirates, not by rebels. Something worse. Something old. The attackers didn't want resources. They didn't want slaves. They wanted to erase everything. Cities were burning. Children were hunted. Civilians were used as bait. And no one came. Not the Council, not the empires, not the trade fleets. The signal said one thing, over and over again. This is our last breath. Please, someone, anyone. For 13 hours, the cry echoed through open space. Most heard it and did nothing. Others turned off their receivers. It was too far, too risky, too lost. The Council didn't even add it to their official emergency list. Halvina had no value, no alliances, no seat in the politics of power. It was a farming world, filled with peaceful people who only knew how to grow food and raise families. But someone heard the signal, someone who didn't care about value, borders, or Council permission. On board the Eclipse, Earth's hidden flagship, Commander Thorne stood in silence as the signal played on a loop. His officers didn't need orders. They were already moving. Course plotted, fleet alerted, drones launched. Because when Earth hears a cry, it doesn't ask for reward, doesn't calculate odds. It responds. The Deathworlders moved like shadows. Across space, no warning, no trail. When they arrived at Halvina, the planet was already on fire. The attackers' machines older than memory, created by a dead empire, had built massive towers across the surface, draining energy and killing anything that moved. Their ships were armored with tech the Council didn't understand. But Earth didn't try to understand them. They neutralized them. The first move was fast. Coded virus launched from a Deathworlder drone that shut down every scanning tower in one blast. The second move came from orbit black drop pods screaming through the atmosphere, landing with thunder. And then came the third move: silence. Every Earth soldier moved without speaking, their armor matte black and sealed tight. They didn't shout, they didn't roar. They simply executed, target after target, machine after machine. With perfect aim and cold precision, civilians watched from bunkers, their eyes wide, barely able to believe what they were seeing. The Deathworlders fought like no one else. Not wild, not messy. Every step, every shot, every action was clean, fast, final. They didn't save the cities, they took them back. In less than an hour, half the planet was cleared. The machines tried to adapt. They unleashed acid drones, kinetic hounds, and orbital mines. But it didn't matter. Earth had seen worse. Earth was worse. One by one, the attackers fell. Some screamed in binary, some exploded, some tried to run. None succeeded. In the largest city, where the last tower stood, Commander Thorne himself walked through the rubble. His armor reflected the flames, but his voice remained steady. No more silence, he said. And with that, the tower fell. But that wasn't what shook the galaxy. It was what happened after. Instead of leaving, the Deathworlders stayed. They built medical stations, distributed food, restored power. They spoke to no one. Their actions screamed the truth, Earth had answered. And they didn't ask for thanks. They just left things better than they found them. The survivors, still in shock, began to whisper stories. A girl who had lost both parents said a soldier carried her on his back through flames and didn't say a word. An old farmer swore he saw one of the Earth soldiers give away his own armor. Peace to a wounded boy. One family found their destroyed home rebuilt overnight with seeds already planted in the soil. And before Earth left, they did one final thing. They placed a ring-shaped device in the center of the city. It glowed softly. When people came near it, they felt calm, hopeful, protected. The cry of Halvina had been answered, and the galaxy knew. News of the rescue spread fast, too fast for the Council to bury. Across the stars, people who had given up hope began to wonder if Earth would hear their cries too. On distant moons and failed colonies, they painted broken rings on walls and ceilings, some lit fires and patterns. Others sent silent signals through deep space channels. They didn't speak Earth's language, but they had learned Earth's rule. If you scream, they will come. This terrified the powers that once ruled everything, because now, the galaxy didn't trust empires, it trusted ghosts. The Council tried. Again, to stop it, they increased patrols. They blocked transmissions. They punished anyone who spoke of Deathworlders. But it was like trying to hold back a storm with a wall of paper. The people had seen too much. The silence of Earth meant something now. It meant protection. It meant fear for those who did wrong. It meant hope for those who couldn't defend themselves. And the Council realized, too late, that their greatest enemy was not Earth's strength. It was Earth's honor. In secret chambers, desperate leaders began to whisper one final plan. They had found a way to trace one of Earth's dropships damaged during the Halvina fight. It led to a hidden supply line, a location believed to be a Deathworlder staging point. The Council called it Project Final Voice. Their goal was simple: Attack Earth first, hard and fast. If they could hit the Deathworlders where they slept, maybe they could stop them once and for all. But what they didn't know was that Earth already knew, because Earth had been waiting. The Council thought it had one last chance. After all the fear, all the silence, all the stories of Deathworlders tearing across the stars, they had found what they believed was a weakness, an unguarded staging point, a faint signal traced from Halvina's battle. The location was cold, hidden in a debris field behind a dying star, and even with the best stealth tech, it had taken months to find. The Council called it Operation Endlight. They gathered their best ships, elite crews, and the newest AI-guided weapons. The plan was simple: hit Earth hard before it could strike again. End the myth, shatter the silence, show the galaxy that the Council still had teeth. The fleet launched at once 90 ships strong, carrying torpedoes that could shatter moons, and soldiers bred only for war. As the fleet neared the target, no one spoke. The command crews watched the dark space ahead with tight jaws and cold eyes, but none of them noticed what was missing. There were no signals, no defenses, no signs of activity. It's just silence. And yet, commanders felt something watching them. When the first cruiser entered the debris field, its engine sputtered. The power flickered. AI systems began to lag. One officer shouted about shadows inside the sensors, moving too fast to lock on. Another tried to raise shields. The command ship issued a warning: prepare for Phase 1. Phase 1 never came, because before they could even begin their assault, the sky lit up, not from weapons. From the sudden, quiet appearance of ships black as void, shaped like razors, completely still. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They simply appeared, surrounding the entire Council fleet in seconds. Then one by one, the Council ships lost control. Turrets disabled, drives offline, communications jammed. Not a single shot had been fired, and yet they were completely disarmed. Then came the voice, not loud, not angry, calm, human, real. We were already here. The message played on every screen, every speaker, every helmet. The commanders froze. Some tried to fight back to scream orders, but their voices were silenced by the overwhelming truth. They had walked into a trap, and Earth had set it long before the Council ever arrived. In the silent blackness of space, the Deathworlders moved in perfect unison. They boarded ships without breaking a seal. It took over command rooms like shadows sliding into place. No bullets, no bombs, just presence, just precision. Some officers tried to resist, but Earth didn't punish them. They simply looked them in the eye and said, "You had a choice." That was enough. The Council fleet surrendered without a battle, but Earth didn't destroy them. That was the part no one expected. Instead, they sent every ship home, intact, empty. But with every data core overwritten, every weapon system shut down. One final message burned into the hull of every vessel: no more silence, no more fear. Do better. When the fleet limped back into Council space, people lined the skyports to watch, not to cheer, not to mock, just to witness. The mighty empire that once ruled the galaxy had tried to strike first, and they had lost. Not in war, but in morality. The myth of the Deathworlders had become something unshakable, something eternal. And across the stars, the broken, the poor, the forgotten, finally understood something that would never leave. Them, Earth would come when no one else would. And Earth had one final act left, in a secure transmission sent to every major system. Unhackable, a single image appeared. A world, green, blue, scarred, but alive. Earth itself, restored, watching, ready? And a voice spoke calm and cold. This galaxy ignored too many cries. That age is over. You don't need to fear us. Only fear what happens when you fail to listen. Then the message vanished. Just like the Deathworlders, no one saw them again, but no one forgot. Years passed, new leaders rose. Old systems fell. The Council collapsed. In its place, alliances were formed not by power, but by shared protection. On the outer worlds, The broken ring symbol became a sign of safety. It was painted on homes, schools, even ships. It didn't mean Earth is. Here it meant someone cares. The Deathworlders never returned to take glory. They never asked for thanks. They left only one legacy. If you cry for help, someone will answer. And that hope's small but strong spread farther than any empire ever did. On Halvina, where it all began, a child looked up at the stars. He pointed to a faint shape among them, something moving fast, quiet, almost invisible. His mother smiled and said, "That's a ghost. One of the protectors." The boy asked, "Will they ever come back?" She replied, "They never left." Far beyond the edge of the known stars, deep in the dark where no one dares to go, a fleet moved in silence, watching, listening, ready, because Earth had not saved the galaxy. To rule it, they had answered the call, and they were still answering.